Now, many Syrian refugees are eager to return home now that the Assad regime has fallen. It's a day millions in the Syrian diaspora had been waiting years to see, but mixed with hope for the future, some are afraid the current instability could lead to further chaos for Syria. CNN's Salma Abdelaziz reports.
Before Ahmed Morjan hugs his mother for the first time in 13 years, they both kneel in prayer. Gratitude for a reunion they never believed would come. This is one of many emotional homecomings across Syria after the sudden fall of the Assad regime. At just 19 years old, with security forces hunting him down, Morjan fled his family's home in Aleppo. Later that year, Morjan filmed the exodus as thousands withdrew from the last remaining rebel enclave in Aleppo. "We are leaving with our dignity," Morjan says in this clip, "and we will return one day." That promised return is now finally on the horizon. Morjan says he is planning to move back to Aleppo from Gaziantep, Turkey, where he currently lives with his wife and their 2 young daughters. What is your dream now for Syria's future? I'm optimistic about the future, he says, and I have huge hope that the country will be better than before. But not all are keen to hurry back to an unstable country with an uncertain future, says this human rights defender.
There's no sustainable peace, and which makes me really afraid of getting back there.
Hossam Kassas, who is seeking asylum in the United Kingdom, is among tens of thousands of Syrians whose applications for asylum were suspended after the UK and other European countries paused the process to reassess now that the threat of Assad is gone. For years, Kassas has documented potential war crimes committed by all major parties to the conflict. If he goes back, he says, his family could be targeted or worse. Why do you not feel safe to return?
We expected a lot of revenge killing will happen. Those soldiers will seek revenge from the people who were trying to hold them accountable, actually.
Many Syrians in the diaspora long to return and rebuild, but this moment of great hope brings with it great uncertainty. Salma Abdelaziz, CNN, London.
So your organisation, the UNHCR, expects about 1 million Syrian refugees will return to their country in the first half of 2025. So how will Syria cope with their return, coming as the new government's trying to establish stability in the country in the wake of the fall of Bashar al-Assad?
Well, let me clarify something. This figure, 1 million refugees returning to Syria in 6 months, is something that we expect to happen in the best case scenario of how things will unfold in Syria. So this is hinged on a peaceful transition of power, a stabilizing of the security situation, which is very fluid and fragile right now. People as refugees around the world, especially in neighboring countries around Syria, are monitoring this to see how safe will it be for them to go back. Will their rights be respected? Basic respect for human rights and protection for their land and property and the prevalence of law and order. At the same time, they know that the country had suffered a lot of damage, a lot of destruction in the past 14 years. More than 90% of the population in Syria need humanitarian assistance. So people are also watching. Is the international community going to step in and support Syrians to rebuild their country? Based on all these different factors, and things work in the best case scenario, so all these factors, we tick the box on all these items, we expect 1 million Syrians to return. But if that doesn't happen, people cannot just pack their stuff and take their children and go back to uncertainty. They want to be assured and they want to have the confidence that when they go back, they will be safe, their rights will be respected, and that they will have a chance to work, to make a living, to send their kids to school. These assurances will only come through a peaceful transition and through the international community's commitment to help Syrians rebuild Syria.
And if this happens, this return of the 1 million Syrians in these first few months of the new year, they will, of course, require an immense amount of resources to settle them. How can they all be housed, fed and looked after when there's already great needs when it comes to humanitarian aid?
Yes, there are great needs. You know, a lot of the basic infrastructure in Syria, like electricity, water systems, schools, health services, hospitals, had been destroyed. And most important, their own homes had been destroyed. So to be able to pick up, they will need a lot of support from us as humanitarian agencies, but also from the world to help them rebuild. They need shelter. So if they go back and their house is destroyed, they want to make sure that agencies like UNHCR will be able to have the resources to help them rebuild it, to give them plastic sheeting to cover the windows and doors, and later on to rebuild, that the international community will invest in electricity, in water. So these are very, very basic needs. And the main strength, the main element that Syrians have to be able to do this is themselves. They have endured so much suffering and hardship in the past 14 years. More than 13 million Syrians had been displaced out of their homes. They had to flee, some inside the country, some outside the country. And yet we saw a lot of resilience, a lot of willpower to protect their children and to try to give them a future. Now they have so many hopes that this change in Syria will mean an end to their displacement, an end to their suffering, an end to all kind of hardship. However, mixed with these hopes, they have also many, many questions. How safe is Syria going to be? They are worried. Is there going to be internal fighting or not? Will the new regime be democratic? Will it respect people's rights? So before packing up and leaving the host communities and the host countries they lived in, they want to be able to be, let's say, confident that they won't have to move again and to flee again if they return. And that's why what we say is also very important. Every refugee has the right to go back to its country whenever this refugee chooses to be so. And when they do that, we are there to help them. However, we appeal to all these countries that hosted Syrian refugees in the past 14 years to be patient. Please be patient with them, give them the space, give them the time to be able to make an informed decision and a voluntary decision to go back. Please don't force them to go back. That's against international law. Many people think that because the regime of the President Bashar al-Assad had fallen, it means all kinds of security concerns that Syrians had disappeared. Now, many of these security concerns had disappeared, but other risks are emerging. And these risks could be addressed and could be eliminated. But people want to be assured before they make that step.